This question is a little appropriate because seeing as we're doing this through Google Hangout, I have been spending a lot more time on YouTube. On YouTube, obviously, you can find a bunch of things. You can find literally anything that you search for. But one thing in particular that I feel like me and a lot of peers have been kind of watching in particular are vlogs. Your research has kind of gone into a lot of self and other, like that distinction. I was just curious what you would think about kind of doing your experiment with, for all intents and purposes, a stranger, but someone who you have extensively watched and or know about their lives. Like, for example, if you did your study with me and someone I watched on YouTube and someone whose life that I follow every single day and whose kind of ins and outs and kind of personal characteristics I know, but for all intents and purposes, they're strangers, how do you think that research would turn out?
It's a great question, and I really like the way that it really brings affordances into the picture here. What does another person afford? It could be that when we're talking about sort of just emotional stress and feeling like, in a broad sense, the world might be asking too much of us. It could be that just knowing that there are others out there that like us, that affords a greater sense of general security, that we know that somewhere there might be someone that can help us. My colleague Denny Profit, who does those backpack studies with looking at the slant of a hill, if you're standing next to your friend and he asks you to estimate the heaviness of a box, then standing next to your friend will decrease your estimate of how heavy that box is likely to be, right? That'll reflect that you have your body believes that there's help. But if he puts that person behind plexiglass and they're not going to be able to help you with that box, the effect goes away. That's partly because your brain is going, well, what's the goal? And what is the person actually able to, what do they afford? What does their presence afford my body in terms of work that I can do? So what I would say, as we all move into more virtual lives, which is what's happening, it's what's going on right this minute, there are going to be some things that those virtual relationships afford and some things that they don't. And I think in general, if you stack them right next to each other, they're going to afford less than having people in close physical proximity. But I think it's a mistake to then say that these virtual things are useless. And otherwise, I wouldn't even be doing this with you guys, right? They're obviously not useless.
Hi. I just wondering where you see your work intersecting with the work of identity fusion, which is another kind of, self-other distinction that's recognized in the social psych literature. And it seems to be, very similar to what the stuff that you're doing.
Yeah, no, and the thing about identity fusion is that it's even more broadly, it's a broader idea, right? It's not about self-other in terms of a specific individual. It's like self-other in terms of group, coalition, tribe, whatever you want to, say. And so I think there's a lot of potential to think in those terms. What we'd like to do, for example, is draw from some of the identity fusion literature to do some of our hand-holding studies or something similar, where we don't vary familiarity specifically, but we vary sort of group identity, for example, or religious affiliation. And one of the things that would be really interesting is to know whether, for example, if we have someone who's very strongly, Republican or Democrat, or very strongly, Christian or Muslim or whatever it is, to threaten them with threat of shock, and then threaten someone who shares their affiliation but who is otherwise a complete stranger, and see whether you get some evidence of kind of identity fusion there, that is part of me, I am like them, or they are like me because of this broader category to which we both belong.